Okay, so I don't know about you, but this transit of Mars in Cancer has been brutal for me. So in this video, I want to share my own process for working with transits. And then I'm going to use my own personal example of working with the transit of Mars in Cancer to bring the process to life, to give you an actual example so that hopefully is even more helpful to you. Or you can see it in action, how I actually apply the theory. So the theory, the steps are, the first step and obvious step is that I keep track of all transits. Now this is, by the way, process for my shadow work. So it's not, it's how I use astrology for shadow work. So my own personal shadow work process. So I keep track of transits, but step two, I don't necessarily choose the transits. I mean, I want to, I have my favorite, I would like to work that month or that, year or that week or whatever. But far more often than not, the transit chooses me. So how that happens, and this is the step two, is that I'm listening intently and closely to what's happening for me, what's coming up for me, what it is that I'm experiencing and feeling that day, or, just being vigilant and observant, which I do, and that's how I live, basically. So just observing myself, right? And then I'm listening to the language of what's coming up. So usually these things, the shadow work pieces, right, are not pleasant to experience. So this is the, what is the language as I describe my own pain, as I describe my suffering, as I describe my heartache, as I describe my fear. What's the language that I'm using? Also, there is a lot of imagery that comes up. I would imagine for all of us, but certainly for me. So as I'm experiencing these feelings that are coming up for me, there is imagery that comes with it as well. So I'm listening and observing that, and that then tells me what archetype is at play, what archetype speaks through me as I speak of these feelings. Now that then tells me what transit I'm being activated by, and that's what I mean by the transit choosing me. Now I decided what transit it is, or I identified what it is that wants to work with me, that wants me to work with it. I then go to my favorite astrology books. They're usually kind of like a reference books, just for some new ideas, just to kind of, back to the drawing board, as it were. And so so that's a step three, right? So I'm just reading all of it, but you can tell by the way you read. All I'm really looking is affirmation and validation of what I'm going through. And so that gives me language, if I'm missing it, if I'm lacking it, to flash out even more, to give more meat and substance to my experience of the emotions that I'm experiencing. So that's now step four, as in the step four is then, with all of this that I've been reading, I have identified all the shadow. I've given quite a juicy and sort of rich language to my shadow that I'm experiencing, that wants to be engaged with. So that's one column. So essentially at the step four, I end up with a piece of paper with two lists and two columns. One is for shadow expression of this transit, as per my own experience of it. And then the second one is like where I'm headed. So that's the desired outcome. That's the best manifestation. That's the best expression, the highest expression of this transit. Usually it's the kind of thing when I read it, I get excited. Oh yes, I would love to feel that. I would love to be in that place of, living and being. And so those are the kind of clues for me to pick them up. And this is usually typically the other side of that shadow work. So those things that I picked up really neatly correspond to the first column that I created. And what I essentially end up with is like a map, but it's not really a map, even though it is. So it's a map with just the beginning and the end, the start point and the finish point. So I have no steps. There is no, I don't, it's like being in a tunnel. It's like a map of a tunnel. So here I am at the start of it. I have clearly identified that. So it's all that gunk and stuff that needs to be processed, and I need to do something with it, transform it into something that will be nourishing, supportive, helpful to me. So I have that at the beginning of the tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel I have the light, the metaphor of the light at the end of the tunnel, right? But I don't know what's in the tunnel, and I have no map for that. Well, I kind of have a general idea, so it's, and I'll talk about that when I come to my own personal example. Those are the kind of themes, and what you're experiencing. But it's like, it's really not about the steps of getting from that through the tunnel. It's the medicine of walking through the tunnel without knowing the steps is that you're just kind of feeling yourself in the dark and, squelching and breaking stuff and not knowing what you stepped on and done on. But it's because it is a great metaphor for shadow work, because it's like, it's that the fear of shadow work and our resistance towards it is in that sense of unknown and yuckiness and just, I really don't want to put my foot there. I don't know what's underneath in that puddle, that maybe whatever, So it's that feeling. That's how shadow work feels. So this map doesn't give me the shadow work itself, the tunnel, right? It just gives me where I'm headed, because there are many exits of this transit, and I have chosen, or there are many exits to this tunnel, right? And I have chosen by, like I said, by reading and just picking up all the stuff that I want as the medicine of this this transit, right? So essentially I'm choosing where I'm gonna end up. I'm choosing the exit. And as long as I'm headed, so I chose it, it's there, that's the light I'm looking at. So I'm just headed for that direction. And in the meantime, until I get there, God knows what's going to happen. But I'll get there. So that's the beauty of this map, if you like, which is really just the beginning and the end. So, my own personal example of Mars in Cancer. So I'm going to share that with you to kind of give you, bring this to life, this processes and how it happens, how it works in real life, if you like. So, as soon as Mars entered Cancer, I felt it, because it he activated my Saturn by sextile. And sextiles are not exactly necessarily easy aspects, if you ask me. They can be irritating and overstimulating. So the waters have already been stirred for me. But just a little step back, just to kind of give you an example of how I originally really wanted to work with a certain aspect. So I wanted to choose an aspect, but I got chosen instead. So I'm also currently experiencing, and this one will last the whole year, a transit that, as I'm coming up to my birthday in a day or two, I will, it's like that new year, my solar new year. And I always like to kind of plan big and just have these visions and, just vision boards and intention setting and all that stuff, right? It's an exciting time for me, for anyone, I would imagine, for their birthday. So I was going to work with Pluto, transiting Pluto, trining my natal Jupiter, right? And Pluto is in my 10th house, which is all about goals and legacy and work, one's life's work and, and sort of smaller scale, like career. So my presence online, my, what's my next 5-year plan, right? Or whatever. How do I want to grow as Darker Materials and as Maya, as, the creator behind Darker Materials, all that, right? So that's exciting. Right? I'm just really keen to be working with that. And yet, like I say, on my birthday or just in the run up to it, I have been chosen by a different transit. And I'm so grateful for it. So quickly, the reason I'm grateful for it is when I might come back to this again, so forgive me if I repeat myself, but it's coming up now, which is when we choose to work with the transit that have chosen us, or other times I will actually have the space to work with what I want to work with, because nothing major is happening by any transit. Nothing major is being activated by the rest of the transits that are happening. So I can have that freedom and space to pick what I want to work with, but this time I didn't. But the beauty to still then choose to work with it is that, and this is possibly also because it's Mars, so things are very fast and quick, and you can see that Mars is action, and action is the only thing that makes a difference in our 3D reality. Action will make a change, right? So that's possibly also why. But even so, working with any transit, activating something in your chart in particular, is a great way to get motivated to do the shadow work, because you can see the results so much more easily and quickly. And this is not about rushing through shadow work, but it's just the fact when you get on that wave, you kind of coast and you move faster, and you see things that, you see the milestones sooner and quicker. And that keeps you motivated. At least that's certainly how I experience my own shadow work when I work with transits. So Mars, as he entered Cancer, triggered my Saturn, but then also within hours. And often that's what happens when he enters a sign. That by sign, then that sign itself has like a challenging aspect to some of the other planets, even if not exactly by the degree. You will feel it. I mean, I certainly do, always. So I'm now definitely gone past one of those really painful points, but basically Mars in Cancer will have triggered and activated my natal square between my moon in Capricorn and Chiron in Aries, as well as Venus in Aries, Chiron, Venus conjunct. So this natal square is my life experience of those, my life's challenge, right? Has been activated or triggered or both by this Mars in Cancer. So how have I experienced this in my real life? As in life, right? In my day-to-day. So I found myself being oscillating. Well, that would suggest gentleness. No, this is like being plunged from one end to another of this experience, of one end being rage and another extreme being grief. So rage, Mars, grief, Cancer, there's that immediate. That was my clue straight away that this is Mars in Cancer working me. But also, as I allowed myself to experience these feelings of rage as well as grief, and I'm occasionally I'm so lucky to have the luxury of space and time to spend as long as I want and need with myself as I experience this. So that's my situation. But if you can, try to create a space for you as much as you can, as your life allows it. So immediately I knew the language was pointing to Mars in Cancer transit. But then also what came with these feelings were a lot of images and the language and stories attached to those images, or rather those feelings. And they all were like throwbacks to my childhood and my relationship with my mother, which is at the root of, well, I suppose all of our, bless our mothers, I do love my mother and she's a fabulous woman in so many ways. And yet, I still have a lot to go through in terms of working through all my my mother wound. So this has been triggered, and like the images were, like I say, from childhood, the sensations of these griefs and of the grief and the rage were also childlike. It's like there was something not so much innocent, maybe even that, but more like, I don't know, when you cry as an adult or you cry as a child, there is a sense of abandonment. What's that expression? I do something to abandon. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like you don't care what you look like, whether you pretty cry or ugly cry. I mean, when you're on your own, you probably don't think about that anyway. But there was something like a child, those sobs. I don't know. I heard my child. Maybe it was literally a memory of me crying as a child. That's how I sounded. I don't know. But it was a really strong sense of the child, me as a child in these extremes. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I very quickly, because it was so intense, and with Mars transit, especially when it triggers something so painful in your own chart, like in my case, you will know straight away. You won't need to spend much time figuring out what is this archetype. Other times you will have to do that work. So another piece there, as I kind of in between these extremely exhausting and overwhelming emotional states. In between that, I have been really, and this has been going on for a while, so this is not just Mars in Cancer, but this is my Chiron return, again triggering this square, and the square between Moon and anything really is, or rather any challenging aspect to your Moon, will trigger your own relationship to nurturing and nourishing and feeding, and your internal mother, and therefore obviously your external mother as well. So a big theme for me in the run-up, even prior to the Mars Cancer transit, was emotional eating. But that's my life theme. So it's just been brought to surface as well, you know, with the Chiron return, but also Chiron squaring my Moon, which is prior to Mars in Cancer. And just the kind of quick tip as to how you know your Chiron wound: look to the first time transiting Chiron made, first time a transiting Chiron triggered and activated your natal Chiron. And that would vary. That's in teens usually. For me, it was age 16, which is the first time ever that I started emotionally eating, and using food to silence myself, silence my voice, silence my feelings, numb myself, so I don't feel what I don't know what to do about. Once I feel it, what do I do with this anger? What do I do with this grief? No one around me seems to be okay to handle it, to accept it, to witness it, so let's just stuff it and keep it quiet. So that's age 16, and it's because Chiron for the first time made sextile to my natal Chiron, and like I say, sextile is irritant, and it was this you know, it was irritating, these feelings that were coming up, wanting to be felt. I really didn't want them. I remember I was 16. I had quite a, well, I had overall, I'm lucky to say that I had a good life, and I have a good life. But I remember it was just full of, you know, adventures, and various romances were happening. I was just happy. I just didn't want to be feeling these things, and yet they wanted to be felt, and yet I didn't want them to. So I ended up eating to silence. So that's the core. That's the root of the beginnings of my emotional eating, and Chiron wound. So Mars in Cancer has triggered all this. Now, we keep going back to our original wounds, to all of our wounds. I think some shallow ones get healed and we don't even notice the scars anymore. It's like they've never been there. But many others, we go around, live, and then we come back to them, and they're there still. Now, they're never the same. You always have done the work, and therefore this wound, is, or rather your reaction to it is far less or far more compassionate than angry, and your with time, your instinct and your impulse isn't to run away from it anymore. You just want to sit with it, and you work with it better each time you come around to it. So this emotional eating piece has been my life's, biggest, piece, and I have worked with it and tried various ways of dealing with it. And I can tell you that now, at the age of 52, almost in a day or two, I feel like I'm a new person, a different person, far better place to deal with it. Now, the beauty that this has come up, and this Mars in Cancer, although Mars in Cancer happens every other year, so it's like I had these experiences probably before, and I haven't actually looked back on those transits. I might do that just to kind of make some compare notes and stuff. But I'm sure that this wasn't the theme at all at the time. It would have been something else, depending on whatever else. So, but now emotional eating is like the biggest like red flag in my life, and for the last year I tried to work with it, just to kind of get my shape and diet and fitness and health to some kind of level where in itself is a motivating factor to keep going. And I was always able to do this easily, just get into that mindset and get motivated. I never stuck with it, that's the problem, but I was always able to start. For a year at least, I was not able to start, and I was like, why? What's going on? And here we come. Mars in Cancer comes, and I'm all raring to go, and I can't wait to finish this, to be out and doing my hour and a half or 2 hour walk. So back to the list. So let me share some of that list. So on the shadow aspect, this is just brief notes. I mean, I wasn't elaborating on this, just like, sketchy notes, right? So on the shadow side of the left column, I have anger towards mother, which is a Mars in Cancer expression as well as my own experience of it. Then I cross that on the kind of light, or what's the outcome? How can I work with this? When I've done the shadow work, what do I get? Or how do I get this shadow work done well? I have emotional fierceness. So what that means for me is that that's that part of that light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, whenever this anger towards my mother comes up, I'm just thinking emotionally fierce, meaning be brave and courageous and fierce in feeling all the anger towards your mother. And you can probably relate to this, that in itself is like one of the heresies of our society and our culture, to feel anger towards our mothers, right? Or, whatever else, even darker and harder. So I'm giving myself permission, and I have Mars in Cancer supporting that sense of courage because I have identified it as such. That will help me get the courage to feel all those feelings. And that's what I've been doing now. This is how this helps me with the bigger picture of emotional eating, because by having the courage to feel the feelings, I'm not reaching out for food to stuff those feelings. So I'm automatically solving the bigger problem when I'm looking at the root of it, right? It's like a domino effect. Then another piece there, another shadow piece there is responding with anger. Which is Mars in Cancer, again, like a reactiveness, emotional reactiveness. So what's the light in that tunnel? What am I heading for? What am I aiming for in order to resolve this and eliminate this, and transform this shadow of mine, right? And I have put down changing action patterns, and that's Mars in Cancer as well. So habitual actions or habitual behaviors is Cancer or Moon, or and changing is Mars. Mars is an active agent. Change happens only when we do things, and Mars does things. So whenever I'm reactive and I'm coming from anger and reacting emotionally, I just have to remember that light at the end of that tunnel is you can change this habitual response. And immediately I have been able to do that. I still may have been reactive, but as I remember it, I'm immediately able to, the results are so fast because I'm working with the transit that's giving me this medicine. It's there. It's like sitting at a table and the medicine cabinet is there and you're just picking each one as you need it. And the results are immediate. That's the beauty of working with transit. Another example is on the left column of the shadow. I have driven by hunger. So that's a kind of emotional eating piece. And also, so the light at the end of that tunnel is feeling emotionally nourished through physical activity. And I can tell you that as Mars entered Cancer, I started walking, doing my 1.5 or 2 hour walk. And it's like I crave it, like I crave food. Now, see the beauty of working with transit? It's like for a year, at least, I was unable to get myself motivated to do any exercise. And it's a lockdown. I mean, when am I going to be able to do this if not now? So, and yet I was not able to. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to do that. So Mars enters Cancer straight away. I'm like, I can't wait to get out because Mars activity, Cancer food, I am fed and nourished by physical activity. So what I'm doing now is Mars is going to be in Cancer until 12th of June. So I'm absolutely committed to death and back, to the moon and back, to this activity. And it doesn't take a lot. It's just like I actually crave it, like I would crave food, like I say. So by 12th of March, I will have had, I don't know, more than a month of me doing this daily, this exercise. And also this kind of shadow work, which will stave me of food, emotional eating. And by the 12th of June, I hope, my motivation in human design, to have achieved and reached the place of satisfaction at the work I've done for myself and shadow work and my fitness and my health. And once Mars leaves Cancer, true, this whole kind of, feeling nourished by physical activity might not be there the way it is at the moment, but I will have reached the point where I will be motivated by the work I would have done by that point. You know the feeling when you start going, it's always like the start is always difficult. And when you, after a week at the gym, you feel if you can stick with it, after that, you're motivated by feeling good every day. And so that's the plan. That's my plan. And so that's, I have this list in front of me. Well, this is a shorter version, but it's basically just a A4 book with that. And that's my to-do list. That's my to-do list for shadow work for a particular transit. And yeah, like I said, because you're working with it, the results are there and palpable, and you can, and that in itself is motivating. And even when it's hard, it's beautiful because you feel all that. I just had someone leave something here. So agree with those associations. I have natal Mars in Capricorn, but it opposed my Cancer moon. Oh wow, and I need to move intentionally to pros. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. The dreaming canvas. Thank you so much. And okay, so this is now going to be on my feed, so you and anyone else can watch from the beginning. But yeah, so hopefully let me know how you're experiencing this Mars in Cancer or any other transit that you are working with at the moment, and your process. What's your process with working with it? And if you haven't got one, try this one and then let me know how that pans out for you. And I shall see you around soon. Thank you. Bye.